So I think this all kind of began for me when I was like 9. The first instrument I ever laid my hands on was the drums. My stepmom got me a drum kit. I think it was from like some secondhand store, and I was always very drawn to it, to anything musical. This is going to sound super cliche, but I never saw myself working a normal job or doing anything behind a desk for the rest of my life. Some of that stems from always, I was never really great in school. I was always the one out of my brother and I that didn't always do super great in school, and I was always the one who was getting ripped on for their grades, and I was never good in school. Anyways, fast forward a little bit to around, I want to say, probably transitioning from middle school into high school. I think I got into piano, and something just always kind of drew me to it. I like to say that I'm okay at everything, but I'm not great at one specific thing. That's something I feel like was missing from my life, was just trying to excel at one thing. And I feel like part of me and my soul has kind of found that now. I feel like I have some purpose in doing what I'm doing. That's something that I haven't felt really ever. I struggled a lot in my past, and still some to this day, with my mental health. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that, especially nowadays. I feel like a lot of people can relate. It's something that isn't talked about enough. I feel like even though, it's a newer generation, and, we are starting to talk about it more, I still feel like it's not enough, and I feel like we could be doing more to help it. Also, another thing that I've also kind of struggled with a lot of my life is relationships, whether it's friends or a girlfriend, family. I'm not going to get too deep into family stuff, but I spend a lot of my time alone. A lot of my time goes into this and goes into making music, and whether I'm DJing or if I'm putting together a song in my room at 3 a.m. I just feel like it's something that I've always struggled with, was kind of being alone and feeling alone. Once again, I feel like that's something that a lot of people can relate to. Not just whether it's your friends or whatever, not being there and all that. I feel like just that overall feeling of just emptiness, and feeling like you don't have anybody when you really need people. Whenever you need people, they aren't there, and it's something that I battle with a lot. And I would say probably one really serious relationship, and I think if she sees this, then she knows who I'm talking about. And if you're a close friend of mine, then you know who I'm talking about. That lasted for around 5 years, and it ended just because we had started dating pretty young, and then as we kind of grew older, we just kind of saw each other more as roommates than boyfriend and girlfriend. And there was a point where I did think I was going to marry this girl, and of course that didn't end up happening. It was mutual. I still see her every so often, and we can be cordial, and she's with someone now, and seemingly happy, and that's something that I have not found yet. There's been a few things here and there, I guess, if you want to call it a talking stage, which I hate using that word, but nothing that I felt could really stick or be long term. And I still kind of have that sense of yearning or longing for someone, and I feel like that's a lot of what this album is about. And I feel like it was just my whole subconscious doing that. It wasn't even a conscious effort to be this is what I'm going to write about. I was on song 5 of 11 and was this is about me, and this is about how I feel. I was trying to write something from a standpoint that I didn't think that I had felt, or something that I feel like I would have to endure eventually. Yeah, no, I just kind of got into kind of a point that I was like, yeah, this is about me. Didn't even think that I was doing that, and now I'm about to release an album. My first album. I have 3 singles out right now. It is currently Wednesday, January 7th. And yeah, I couldn't be more excited for this album. Like, I worked so hard and poured so much emotion into this album, and I feel like that shows. I don't know if I'm going to do another video like this where I'm talking straight to the camera and explaining what my album is about. Kind of wanted to explain the title of the album and what it means. So I was at a gig DJing one night, and I had one of the security / barback that I'm friends with. If he sees this, he knows who I'm talking about. He came up to me and, we got to chatting about music, and we were just talking, and I was, showing him some music, and, I told him, I was like, yeah, I already have, 3 songs out on, all streaming platforms. And so he looked me up and then texted me like later that next day and was like, yo, these songs have me like in a chokehold right now. And that's something that I haven't heard from anybody who's listened to my music, and that struck a chord with me. To rewind a little bit, that night I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, man, I'm like, planning on releasing an album. I have like, at the time I think I only had like 8 songs finished, which was the majority of them. I had the other 3 ready to be mixed and mastered, and I was just saying to him, like, I don't know what to call it. And he was like, what's the album about? It's about feeling like that constant, yearning for someone to be in your life permanently and to love you unconditionally, and, just all those things. So I was like, yeah, man, I don't know what to call this album. We, shot a few ideas back and forth, and this was, during closing, and I was waiting, for my check and to go home for the night. And he was like, how about Inhale? And I thought about it, and I was like, why that? And why were you drawn to that word? And he was like, I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but he was like, it's kind of right before you go all in on someone and fully commit. It feels like you're taking a big, deep breath of air, hoping for the best, and having your fingers crossed behind your back the entire time, like hoping this works. And that can go for any relationship, whether you're trying to mend a relationship with a family member, or if you're trying to, I think, tell someone how you really feel about them, which can be extremely scary. And when I used to deal with a lot of bad anxiety problems, a lot of people would just tell me, like, just breathe. And for a second, like that, when people would tell me that, it kind of pissed me off, because I was like, I don't know how why do you think that me just breathing is gonna help? And then I had to, like, kind of sit there and think about it, like, why do people tell me to just breathe? I thought about it, and it took me a while to come up with an answer, but it's something that I feel like helps a lot with feeling overwhelmed and not quite knowing what's wrong with you in that moment, and having all these questions about yourself and things around you and everything like that. So I feel like that's a big thing throughout this whole album, is like every time I was writing a song or even coming up with instrumentals or anything, it was always just like, let me not get too overwhelmed with all of these options that are literally in front of me, and breathe, take a second, and then, really go all in. And I feel like that's a huge, like, analogy for, or metaphor for a relationship. But yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about before this album drops. And someone who I follow very closely, they said, there is nothing quite like releasing music. I don't have any doubts either. The whole time making this album, I was like, I really like it. And I feel like maybe in a few years or so, I'll probably look back and be like, this sucks. Like, why did I put this out? I feel like it'll just be a good point to look back and realize how much I've grown in doing this. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to, take a snapshot of what this time looks like and put this video out, because I haven't put a video out like this on this channel in a very long time. And if you try to go back and look for any other ones, they're probably gone because I unlisted them. Yeah, my new album, Inhale, is out tomorrow, 12 a.m. tomorrow as of you watching this. I'm excited. I'm excited for where this is gonna go. Still so much more music. I'm already working on more music. I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I feel like this is a first big step in a direction that I want to go. Yeah, hope you enjoy. Would love to hear some feedback and even constructive criticism. I'm very open to constructive criticism. Thank you for listening. I love you all, and I hope this year is great to you. So, peace.